relaxed. So life just seemed to have more natural flow when we were away in the van, and waking up to a different view every day was just beautiful. There's just nothing like sitting on the top of the van, stargazing. And then when you wake up in the morning, it's just like this absolute delight when you realise that you're surrounded by the most panoramic and beautiful views and you had no idea where you was.
Hi, I'm Beki Eakins, business mindset and lifestyle coach for occupational therapists. I focus on creating a freedom-based online business, helping OTs to package up their skills in unique and exciting offers that feel so good that they sell with ease in the online space. Since leaving the profession of OT, I have now worked with hundreds of clients online, helping them to create a life they feel inspired by. In this podcast, I will talk about the lifestyle goals, mindset, and strategy you need to create your own life of freedom.
Today, I wanted to talk about van life, but specifically van life with kids and a business. So for those that don't know what van life means, it's basically living in a camper van, something that I've done on and off for many years now. So an OT recently talked to me about her dream to be able to use OT skills and live in a van. And she said something. She said, "I'm not sure that this is realistic." And so I was just like, oh my goodness, no, it is so realistic. It is so possible to be able to do that. But it's not necessarily the dream that you might expect. So I just wanted to share about my experiences of living in a camper van, the good, the bad, the ugly, and just give you an oversight, and then you can decide whether it's something that you want to pursue or not after you've heard the honest appraisal. And just, to say that you can use your OT skills in so many ways, and you can create a business that does allow for this kind of lifestyle. But to start with, I didn't use my OT skills, but later on, I realised I could have made this transition a whole lot easier, and I could have kept my OT registration. So we've always had vans, VWs. So the first van we got was a VW T4, a yellow van. It was originally a breakdown company that had it, and then we took it on, and my ex-husband, he ripped apart all the inside of it and kitted it out and converted it into a beautiful yellow camper van. So that was our first one, but we outgrew that van and we wanted to live in the camper van. So rather than just going away for, a few weeks at a time, we actually were doing quite a lot of traveling by then, and we wanted to be able to live in it. So we upgraded to a VW Crafter long wheelbase. And that gave us a lot more space. And again, my ex converted it, and the kids had like bunk beds at the back. We had a little shower and toilet area, a sink and a cooker, and cupboard space and all of that. And then at the front was kind of like a dining area that was actually the double bed as well. So it was still very compact, but it had a lot more space. And the big difference between the two vans was we could stand up in the second van, which makes a massive difference. So when I initially designed the life of freedom that I desired, it did involve living in a camper van, just because we'd always had a camper van. We've travelled Europe many times over in it. The kids have just always camped. When my daughter was 6 weeks old, she was already camping. And my son has just been out ever since he was born. So my son actually, he learned to walk in Switzerland. I think he was just 9 months old when we were traveling Europe. We've just got these beautiful memories of him. He's just like trying to catch butterflies, and then he keeps falling over. And there's just this stunning backdrop of mountains, such happy memories that we had. So the kids really grew up with multiple van holidays. 3 to 4 weeks was always the optimum, because in those days we were both working as occupational therapists. That was the maximum we could get. But we would go away frequently for long weekends away. But over time, we just really started to realize that when we were away, when we were living in the van, we were happy. When we came back, we just felt stressed. So life just seemed to have more natural flow when we were away in the van, and waking up to a different view every day was just beautiful. I really prefer a van to a hotel. Even now, I would still far rather be in a camper van than a hotel, just because you've got your home comforts and you can cook. You don't have to rely on other people. Sometimes when you're in a family, it can be so difficult pleasing everybody. Whereas as the mother, you just know what everybody likes and you can just cook it. So when I go out with a family, I do still find it easier if we've got our own space. So I'm not a big fan of hotels. I also don't like it if I get into a hotel and I can't open a window, or if there's a view of the car park. Oh, that's awful. Whereas when you've got the camper van, you're just so much closer to nature. Like you just open the window or open the door in the morning and you can already hear the sound of the water lapping, or there might be sheep just wandering around outside the van. There's just nothing like sitting on the top of the van, stargazing. Or one of my absolute favorite things to do is arrive somewhere, what we call wild camping, so not on campsites, but just somewhere that we found on an app, and we would arrive to a location in the dark and not be able to see anything and park up. And then when you wake up in the morning, it's just like this absolute delight when you realize that you're surrounded by the most panoramic and beautiful views and you had no idea where you was. So I love that about it. I just love the freedom, the flexibility, the fun. But yeah, whenever we returned back to full-time work, a house needing renovating, constant jobs, it just felt that we were constantly drained. And actually, it used to make me really dread the end of a holiday. And so over time, my holidays just grew longer and longer. So 3 weeks became a minimum, and 3 months is about where I like to sit now for a holiday. I do like to come back and have some stability and have a home base, but 3 months just suits us because it's a good amount of time to be away traveling. So at this stage of life, I hadn't actually figured out how to create a good income from online work. So we'd created some level of freedom to be able to live in the van like this and on and off, but we hadn't mastered all the pieces about creating a good income. And I was dreaming of creating van life for longer periods. Very often, what we would do is live in the van for months at a time over summer, and we would attend back-to-back festivals with the kids. So the kids are unschooled, and we would travel to lots of different home education festivals, one after the other, where they would meet with their friends and have a lot of parties, and there's just a lot of social connection. And then they would also learn different crafts and different skills that they would pick up at these festivals. So it was just such a beautiful lifestyle, and we really enjoyed that. So at one stage, we were traveling the beaches of Cornwall and Devon, which is south of England. And we were sat on the beach, just enjoying ourselves. It was a very good summer that year. And you could hear the bing on our phone, the sound of the people paying us money on Airbnb at that time, because we were renting our house out, so that we could be free. So that was the first stage of us managing to live in the van. And what we used to do is we created some storage in the house and we massively decluttered. So all we had was one box each. big boxes they were, but just one box each, and we would put them into a locked cupboard and then let people stay in our home. And because the home, we decluttered so much, it was just like a space we were kind of getting ready to sell, really. So it just felt wonderful to have all of these people just checking into our home with our personal belongings safely secured, just so that we could be free and live in a really nice lifestyle. So that felt good. It was a good period for us. But there's an unwritten language that you need to learn to be able to speak when you're a van life family. It's not really talked about so much, but there's only one space in our van, anyway, for one person to pass in the hallway. And of course, nobody can access the toilet if somebody's standing there cooking. And if anyone wants to bend down, you have to make space to bend down. Like, so you need to ask somebody else to move out the way. And you've just basically got to be so careful how you move. And you have to learn to guess the movements of others, and you end up with some kind of synchronistic flow to family movements. So if I was making breakfast, I might guess that one of the children might need to pass at some stage, and you just become predictive as to the movements as everybody else. But there was a lot of friction, and there is every time we go back into the van for the first time after a while, because it's almost like you've got to relearn this new language, this new pattern of movement, and just being really calm around others and checking in what everybody needs, because you've got to work as a team when the space is so small.
I recorded a mindset meditation, one that you can do overnight. Very powerful in terms of helping you create the confidence, the self-belief, and deal with any money mindset issues. I use these kind of overnight meditations all the time. I found them incredibly powerful. So I've created a very special one, and I'm giving it for free to all of my podcast listeners. You can download it on the show notes.
The stop and starting of tasks, because you have to adapt to the needs of everyone, can be very challenging, especially when you're trying to cook in a very small space. So, sometimes food could take a long time to prepare because of this problem. And of course, you have to always make sure that the pots and things are all clean, just because there's literally no space for any mess at all. So you just learn how to cook in a different way. You maybe dress in a different way, wash in a different way. I mean, I know I said we had a bathroom, but it was so tiny, absolutely tiny. So, but the bonus with all of that is that cleaning it would only take a couple of hours at the absolute max, instead of, all day or a few days if I was cleaning the house. So as the years progressed, we eventually sold the house to fund more freedom, and we bought a one-way ticket to Europe. It had no return date, only we were never meant to go because COVID scuppered those plans a week before we were due to leave. We ended up stranded in the UK. We'd sold our home, we'd got rid of our jobs, and so we were kind of homeless and jobless at the start of the pandemic. So it was a bit of a crazy time for us. And we had 11 days of frozen pipes to the van, and that was really tough. The van was scratched by people who didn't like the fact that we were living in the van. There were a lot of haters during COVID, and we just didn't feel as safe to wild camp like we had previously. People thought that we were on holiday. I guess nobody realized during the pandemic that there were so many of us who were stuck living in vans that didn't have anywhere to go. There were no campsites open. It was quite a difficult stage. So it was kind of heartbreaking to not make that European trip. But at the same time, we felt better to be stuck in a country that we knew, just when all of that madness was happening. So we kept hearing of friends who were racing over across countries as fast as they could in Europe just to cross borders before each country locked down. And some of the countries were so strict and they weren't allowing children out. And oh, can you imagine? So we were so happy in the end to have not gone. We just wanted to have an easy life. So we chose not to bother going when the borders did open, as it just didn't feel like the trip that we had dreamed of. We're very sociable, and we wanted there to be a lot of people when we travelled Europe again. So instead we just chose to keep traveling the UK for a few more summers. And then when the festivals came back, we just resumed festival life as we had done before, which is always so much fun. So we had a beautiful wild camp in North Wales. When the world started opening up after COVID, we were parked on a road with hundreds of other vans. It was just like everybody came out at the same time. And there was such a party atmosphere. So this was Panorama Way. This was like a really beautiful, stunning road in North Wales. The views were gorgeous. It was near a castle, and the vans were just lining up at the edge of the road, and people had pulled out chairs, there were fires, there was music, dancing. Oh, it was just such a great experience, and there's been so many of those moments. One of the best bits about van life people is the community, and just everywhere where you pull up in a van, you can just go and talk to the person in another van, because people are generally really nice. And we've just made so many amazing friends over the years. And the good thing is, when van life people come to visit, they always bring their home with them. So it makes it easy to have visitors. So the last time we spent 3 months in the van, and I say the last time because it's never going to be repeated ever again. So my business was quite well established at this stage, and I was coaching at that time from the van. And so because of the internet problems, we were traveling around the UK this particular summer. It was very, very hot summer. And we were traveling in the UK, and the internet is not very good in a lot of the UK, especially the kind of places where we like to camp are in the middle of nowhere. And so there wasn't internet. So we carried Starlink satellite internet with us. So we'd got basically a very pimped up van, because we put this satellite on top of the camper van every time I wanted to do a call. But of course, even when it was on an inverter, it would drain the batteries super quick. So then we would be hoping the sun would come out whilst I was on the calls, and thankfully it did come out a lot, in order to recharge the solar panels to provide energy for the internet. But the problem was, then I would be so hot. I mean, imagine being in a tin box on a really hot day. I mean, it's crazily hot. So then I would have the dilemma, should I put the super fan on? If I put the fan on, then that would charge the batteries again. So I was sitting there trying to coach, trying to concentrate, and I was literally so hot. I was just melting on these calls. So that was one of the problems of this trip. But there's so many more. The whole trip was just incredibly challenging. So for one, the kids were a lot older by this stage, and they had no privacy. So my daughter stays up later than me, and she had nowhere to go really, because we're all in this very small space. And then we had a new puppy with us, and this new puppy chose me as the person that she should jump on my head every morning at 5 o'clock for me to get up out of bed and sort her out, which is fine because I'm the early riser, but it wasn't very pleasant day after day. And then this was followed by an attempt to try and sneak out quietly, try and have my laptop and everything I might need for work with the dog, the lead, and everything that she might need, and try and do all of that without waking people up. And to be honest, it was just stressful. It was a really hot summer in the UK, and by like 8 o'clock each morning, I was sat trying to work outside. And I was just frazzled. I mean, what a summer. It was lovely, but there was no shade, and trying to get the dog sorted. Oh, it was just so difficult. And then, of course, there was a lack of privacy to be able to take the calls due to the nature of what I do. I do need privacy to be able to work. And if I need privacy, I have to kick my family out of the van, all of them. So no matter what the weather, they have to go out. So it was just tricky. If I sat in the van, it could be too hot. If I sat out the van, it still could be too hot because there was no shade. Oh dear, it was just a very, very challenging time. I could probably even give you 100 more reasons why it was hard and why I swore that I am never going in the van with my family, a puppy, and a business ever again. I might do them separately, like I'd love to have a camper van just for me. But yeah, as a single person, I think it's okay to be able to work from the camper van. It's got challenges, especially with the internet and electricity. But yeah, no, I wouldn't do that with the family ever again. And the other thing with it is energetically, it's really hard to switch from lazy family beach life. I mean, we were really living so slowly, in such a beautiful way. And yet, in my business, I'm a thriving entrepreneur. I'm really wanting to give energy to people. And it was just a difficult balance. So I could be swimming in the sea 1 minute and then having to run back just to run a group call. There was one time where I have been waved out of a pool. Beck, do you know 2 minutes till you call? And yeah, sometimes I could easily get distracted. So despite me not working a lot, and I wasn't working many hours a week, maybe about 15 to 20 at that stage, but it did not feel good with the flow of life or business. So the challenge with this kind of lifestyle is that the family are on holiday for 3 to 4 months at a time, but I'm still working. So I do lower my hours every summer. I just have to, and I work more like 10 to 15 hours per week these days during the summer. But even that can be a challenge without the right childcare. They tend to just want to have me organising everything and me sorting things out. So it just becomes a challenge. So after many years of van life, I've realised it has ups and downs. And I'll be honest, the last time I travelled in a van with 2 kids and a puppy will literally never be repeated. Absolutely, I will not do in that way again. But for me, as a mum and a business owner, I think I've outgrown van life in that way. So I found that the best way to travel with kids for me and run a business is Airbnb or holiday rentals where the kids can have a bedroom each and I have space to work with a strong and reliable internet connection. So this is how we spent 6 months at the start of 2023. I just hired a constant stream of Airbnbs across North Wales, Cornwall, Scotland, and Australia. And that just allowed peace of mind and sanity. And certainly when I went to Australia, I went with my parents and my family so that my kids could have other people. So if in Australia in particular, I spent like 2 5-hour days working a week, and my kids would go out with my parents or something, and it just means that they're looked after and I don't need to worry about them. So if you want to use your OT skills to create a business that runs online, then just be assured it is possible. There are many options available to you. Feel free to send me a message if you want to talk about your personal situation with that. But one piece of travel advice that I do have for anybody who's wanting to set up a business and go traveling is don't go too soon. The start of a business is just such a fragile and vulnerable time. And if you try and add in big and complex plans too soon, you're just going to melt under the stress of it. So it's maybe not so bad for solo travelers, but every time you change a time zone or you choose to travel without good internet, you're just adding in more layers of stress. If you've got little people, they've got their own needs, and it just starts adding in more and more layers of difficulty. So certainly this year's trip with Australia was one of the better ones that I've had, just for so many reasons. I hired more staff, so my business could run without me. Just before I went to Australia, I made one last hire, and that was massively impactful on my stress levels. I really just relaxed and was just able to enjoy myself. The business also had money in it by then. It had got scheduled sales and income. So financially, I was more stable. So I wasn't having to worry about making sales. Obviously, they still came while I was away because my business grew, but there wasn't that pressure that there is at the start of a business. And because of that, we were able to hire really beautiful places. So really stunning Airbnbs with swimming pools and pool tables and, all sorts of things so the kids could be entertained. And of course, having the support of my family makes a massive difference. So all of those things combined, that is how I will travel in the future. Not hotels. I find hotels very difficult with kids. But when planning a life of travel, it's good to be realistic that it's not just about driving into the sunset and everything will be perfect, because it won't be. There'll be challenges in whichever lifestyle you choose. There's going to be some great experiences and there's going to be some challenges. But ultimately, if you package up your skills so that you're on a higher income, and that generally comes with higher ticket offers, it's going to allow you more choice when you're making these decisions. So that's the big thing that I would say to you.
If you are an OT with 3 to 10 hours per week spare, then the OT Yourself to Freedom membership is best for you. It will teach you how to create a business, an online freedom style business, but in an affordable way. And this is best for those of you who haven't got the time to really go for it. If you have the time to go for it and you want to achieve bigger results in a short space of time, what you're looking for is the OT Freedom Collective. This is for OTs who've got 10 hours a week or more and you're just really keen to get big results. That's where you're going to be closely supported by our team for a 6-month period. It will be intensive. You'll learn everything you need to create this freedom style business. And the biggest word that people say about it is that it's life-changing.